With regard to who is in charge of this expansion, Mr. Chairman, we found no single federal agency has the mission and therefore is accountable for tracking the number of all BSL 3 and 4 labs within the United States.
Your reference earlier to labs, BSL Biosafety Lab Level 4 facilities, this would be the largest in the world.
I feel like we're not being properly represented.
Now, welcome in Durham, and north of Durham.
Just tell us, what you're doing while you're out here.
Well, we are trying to stop the Department of Homeland Security from bringing the National Biological Agricultural Defense Facility to Granville County. We feel it's inappropriate, defies logic to bring the most contagious diseases to our cattle industry, foot and mouth, which can be carried on the workman's breath, to an area where there are 45 deer per acre to carry it all over the country, shut down our borders, collapse our already tottering economy. If you're not worried about that, you might ought to be worried about the hemorrhagic fevers.
We're concerned about the support that you have expressed for the Homeland Security's National Bio and Agro Defense Facility, which is supposed to bring a lab from an island to the mainland U.S., quite possibly to the Durham-Granville line, to study some of the most deadly animal and animal-to-human diseases, diseases for which there's not a cure and there's not a vaccine. We're especially concerned about foot and mouth disease, which could wipe out the state's agricultural industry if there's a release from the lab, like happened in England last year from a government lab. In light of the recent report that was issued by the U.S. Government Accountability Office, which concluded that foot and mouth disease research can't safely be done in the U.S. mainland, and in light of the 4th Congressional District Democratic Party's recent resolution against the NBAF, and the 2nd Congressional District's recent resolution against the NBAF, how can you continue your support for that facility, especially bringing it to the mainland, and especially to your backyard?
If I could suggest that you go to my website and see what I actually said about this, I think the premise of your question is somewhat undermined.
Well, we had one. NAT sponsored and paid for one, and so they've had just the one.
They had a scoping meeting, and they did come to town to answer our questions, but it was difficult to get real answers. Frank Stasio was the moderator, and one question that was asked was, could he give us a list of the pathogens that are currently stored on Plum Island? And can I personally have that list? And they really prevaricated. They said, well, we send that information to the government every month. And then, so how many do you think are on the list? Well, we send that information every month. And so Frank then said, the question is, could I get the list? And they finally said no. So we'll have no idea what's stored or actually what's being worked on.
You go to the Plum Island website and they call it the safest facility in the world, which is just, an out-and-out lie. To say there's been 4 outbreaks of foot and mouth disease that we know of. In one case, they claim they killed every animal on the island, which is their protocol. We understand they actually left a group of goats alive in violation of their safety protocols because they had a series of experiments they were getting ready to start, and it was, again, inconvenient to have to postpone the experiments and wait for some new livestock. The buildings were not even remotely adequately maintained. They had holes in the ductwork. They had missing caulk around windows, airlocks that weren't working. The emergency dampers that were supposed to slam shut with a loss of power were rusted in the open position. HEPA filters that were not being replaced. In the incinerator room, they had everything is supposed to have negative air pressure in order to, they suck air in order to keep the pathogens from escaping from the facility, and then they are supposed to exhaust through these HEPA filters. Turns out, and they're not sure for how long, the fans in the incinerator room were wired backwards, so they were exhausting, not sucking in. Of course, they had kept no logs in violation, again, of protocol, so they don't know how long the fans were wired that way.